Hey everyone, this is Caliga, and today I wanted to bring you an update for the Magistus deck, a combo guide, where I wanted to show off how you get more out of some combos. And also I found a new combo, or rather someone sent me a new combo that I really found interesting that I wanted to show off as well. But first let's go into the basic combo. Last time I had a combo where I said we have Cartesia or 5 mana or K2, but let's assume we actually don't have the K2, but we have the 5 mana, right? And then you can actually do something really cool, and I'll show you in a second. So you go normal summon Cartesia, and we fuse for the Athalion. This is just standard, right? 1, 2. We set our Rahu, we grab these back, we go into Artemis, and we will use our 5 mana to fuse these two for Zoroa, which will then equip the Artemis from the grave, and we have our negate set up now. We will now go and activate the Rahu, send any card from our hand and an Urgula to go into Gulamel, which will trigger the Urgula to set a K2. Now we can activate the K2 to add ourselves a Lucius. You can also add Mululu or Pan in this instance. I'll talk about that in a second, but for this line, let's do Lucius. Next up, we can go activate Artemis, grab Crowley, and now you can actually activate the Crowley, summon it, and use the effect to fuse with the Lucius that you just added to go into Iwas. This will trigger the Lucius, setting you a trap. And now you can go and activate Urgula, grabbing back the 5 mana, and in the end phase you will get back your Cartesia. So this combo works because we didn't have the K2 in the starting hand, so we can just in our combo go for the K2. Now obviously if you open any other name or the K2 with this, you can also do something like this, but this just adds a little bit more of interaction on top of your board. And we end with 4 cards in hand instead of 5. I think that's acceptable for the end board piece here. Now, what I wanted to mention too is instead of the Iwas, you could also go and grab Mululu instead of Lucius and make an invoked Caliga. I'm not a fan of that line because if you want to use the Mululu effect in Grave to set your trap, that means you cannot use monster effects for the end of the turn. So that means A, you cannot get your Cartesia back, which is annoying, but most importantly, it means that they can nib you and you cannot negate it. So that is a risky line, but maybe in some matchups this is just unbeatable and you just take the gamble on the nib. Now obviously we only have one trap set here. The broken setup here is like generally is Caliga plus both traps because and the Zoroa, because that means they can only attack once, which you bounce, they can only activate one monster effect, which you negate, and they need to have 2 breakers because you have the flame. But if you opt to go for this line, what I would recommend is to take the Gulamel and the Artemis away and make a Chorozo. Now Chorozo actually has an on-field effect, you wouldn't believe it, but this says that if a monster declares an attack, you can negate the attack, and if you do, this gains attack, and you can return that monster to the hand. So here now you have a monster negate, attack negate. You have to choose between these two, but you have the options, and then you have the flame for the negate. But generally, I would just go for the safe line, which is having all these pieces on board in this scenario. All right, now I wanted to show you the full Caliga setup, which means you have a Cartesia or a Dissolver or something to fuse, and 2 of these cards. There are other lines to Caliga lock, but this is just one I wanted to demonstrate because it also sets up both traps, and I wanted to have the K2 in here just to show that this is like a wild card between these 2. So let's say I have Mululu and K2, and we put the 5 mana here. We use the K2 to grab the 5 mana, and we go normal summon Cartesia, fuse these 2 for Athalion, adding these 2 back, and both of those will set you a trap. And the Rahu, we set the trap because we already used the K2, right? If we didn't use the K2, you can set a K2 here and then just fuse whatever you add of K2 for Rahu. But in this case, we just set these 2 and then we go into our Artemis and into our Zoroa to set up our negate, and then we can go and activate the Rahu, sending any card from our hand and the Gulamel and an Urgula to make the Gulamel, and that'll trigger the Urgula to set our second trap. Now we have both traps set up, and before we do anything else, we want to get the last monster effect out of the way, because we will Caliga lock after this. So let's grab our 5 mana, and now you can go Artemis, add the Crowley, summon the Crowley effect to fuse with the Mululu in hand, to go into Caliga. Now you can go and end of main, and if your opponent nibs you here, you can Artemis here, but I think they should still nib, because that is your one monster effect. But if they don't, then you will have another monster effect, and that's the Cartesia in the grave, just the 3+. And now this board is really tough to crack, because we have a horn. So Caliga says you can only attack once, and you can only attempt to activate one monster effect per turn. So your opponent's only attack, you can horn back, and if they have an Ash for the horn, you can negate it, and that's that, right? They can only attempt to use one monster effect, so that means that if they activate an effect, you just negate it with the Zoroa, and now they can't activate monster effects anymore, right? And for any breakers they might have, we can Dracotail Flame them. So this is a very, very hard to break board, and it's a bit of a combination of cards that you need, of course, so you can't make this consistently. You can make weaker versions of this, of course. As I showed you before, you can, for example, skip a trap and then have like a Chorozo on board instead, but I just wanted to show you like the full Caliga line here. All right, that's it, and we'll get to the next combo now. All right, so this line is really cool. This was sent to me by someone in my Discord, La Guix, or I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'll put the image on the screen. But he said basically that he didn't like that we had to draw Cartesia or Dissolver to go into the Magistus line. So I thought of the something, and that'll be Lucius plus a name. So normal summon Lucius, grab 5 mana, use the 5 mana. You know this part, right? You fuse 2, and you use the effect of Arthalion to target 2. You want to target your Dracotail name, that is important for later, and you obviously want to target the 5 mana. And you will also trigger the Dracotail name to get the Rahu. Add these 2 back, and now what you do, before you activate the Rahu, you link this away for Artemis. And now you can go activate Rahu. We wanted to do this before we fusion lock ourselves, so we Rahu here. I'll already say it right away, this is a huge Ash choke point, because we already linked away the Lucius for the Artemis, so we cannot go Seals here, right? So keep that in mind. I'll just show you what to do against Ash later, but for now, let's just say this resolves. We get the 5 mana and the Urgula in the grave for our Gulamel, and that'll trigger both of the names to set both traps. And what you do now, this is really cool, and you will fuse Gulamel and Arthalion into Chorozo, because Chorozo says 1 fusion Synchro Xyz or Link monster plus a spellcaster monster. These 2. And the summon of Chorozo will then activate Artemis to equip itself. Now, I just wanted to note that we summoned once with the Lucius, twice, so 2, 3, 4, summon number 5. If they nip here, both of your monsters go away, and you just get your Gulamel back, and that's basically the standard Lucius board, right? You can even get your Gulamel back. They have their nib, you activate Urgula Engrave to grab back the 5 mana and just pop the nib away, so you just go plus off of that. If they wait till the equip, and they nib here, these are still 2 monsters going to the grave, so it'll play out the same. But if they don't, what's really cool here is we can now activate Artemis to grab ourselves the Crowley, which can summon itself and fuse with the Chorozo to go into Zoroa. Now we will have a trigger because 2 monsters went into the grave. We want to bring back our Gulamel, right? So let's put this back here. Now again, if your opponent wants to nib you here, you can just negate it with the Zoroa, and we have the same setup as before, just with Zoroa Engrave. And if they don't nib us here, we go Zoroa effect to equip, like the Artemis here. And if they nib us now it's too late. We just send the Artemis and keep our Zoroa. And next up, we will go and activate the Urgula, grab back our 5 mana, and put this at the bottom. And that'll be our turn. So instead of the classic Seals line, we now have a Zoroa with the Artemis, with a Gulamel and both traps. And we also have a Crowley in the grave. So at any point, we can decide to 5 mana into an Arthalion, grab back the Crowley, and use the Crowley to fuse into something. So really, really cool line. And I'm actually considering dropping the Seals line for just this, because now every line kind of goes into Magistus. That is still subject to more experimentation, however. But let's just rewind it a bit, because I said we have a huge choke point regarding the Ash Blossom. So the setup would be this here, the Rahu on field, and we have the 5 mana in hand, correct? So we activate Rahu and we get ashed. Now, we can't do much here. If you get ashed in the Seals line, you will end on Seals Pass. If you get ashed here, what you can do, depending on your hand, you can either link these two away, just make an SP. If you have Charmies in hand, that would be the line, because SP can get itself off board, and then you can Charmy them. You still have the 5 mana and a name in hand, plus 2 probably hand traps. So that is a compromise. If, however, the name you started with was not Pan, but Mululu, I would go for something different. And that is, let's get it out. If you have a Mululu, what I would do is I would not go for SP. Instead, I would just end on Cross Sheep. And now you have 2 names. At any point, you can go 5 mana, use Mululu with any card to go into a new Arthalion. And now you can add back 2 cards. If you discarded a hand trap, grab it back. And then let's say we add Lucius, because that's a name we haven't used yet. And the Mululu will negate something and set you follow up. Plus, you will trigger the Cross Sheep, and the Cross Sheep can now bring back the Mululu. So now you can use Mululu at any point to fuse Lucius with either the Mululu or the Arthalion that is on board. Let's just say we take the Arthalion and we just go into our Gulamel this way, and we go Chain Link 1 Lucius. If they can't respond, we can Gulamel pop something else, and that will also give you more follow-up. So if you started with the Mululu, then the compromise is not as bad. It's about like similar to the Seals compromise. Obviously the Seals line is better, but if we try to cut extra deck cards to focus more on the Magistus cards, this would be how you would play it. So really, really cool combo. And that's it for that. Now for the last combo for today, I just wanted to show you an emergency line, and that is if you open Crowley and the Dracotail name. In this case, it's only 5 mana. I don't run Regen again, but if you run Regen, you can also make a similar line. But in this case, it's only 5 mana. So Mululu also kind of does something, but it's not as good, because you could just like normal summon and make Caliga. But let's say we have this, we go normal summon Crowley, use the effect, fuse the Crowley and the 5 mana, because that's the only fusion we have, and that'll trigger 5 mana to get you Rahu. Now you have the Iwas, it's already an interrupt. We go Rahu and we use any card of our hand, and we send an Urgula. Now, depending on what you send, if this is a Fuwalos, you can just go Gulamel. If this is like an important hand trap, you can also just go Arthalion, and that'll grab back the hand trap. But let's say we had a Fuwalos, so we go Gulamel, and that'll trigger the Urgula, get a trap of your choice, and you can now use the Urgula, grab back the 5 mana, and you can end on that. Now, not the most impressive board, but considering we drew the 1 brick in our deck, we have 1 interrupt here, we have 1 interrupt here, we have a potential interrupt here, we have the 5 mana, and we have a Crowley parked in our graveyard. So at any point, we can just go 5 mana and fuse into an Arthalion, because we have the Gulamel on board, and the Arthalion can grab back the Crowley, and then you can fuse into like Zoroa for the negate, for example, or you just grab back hand traps, whatever. So I just wanted to show you that Crowley is not always a bad draw. Now, if you opened instead the pan and you went for a Mekaba line, what you would do is, because you don't have 5 mana rotation yet, you would go Rahu, send the 5 mana from the deck, and then summon Arthalion to grab it back. That would be the line how I'd play it, but right now I don't have the Raijin in the deck. So that's it for the update. Hope you liked the video. If you have any way to improve the lines, please let me know. Join the Discord, send me replays. I always look to improve this because this version of Dracotail never existed in the OCG because they had Spoon, right? So if we can improve on this list, that would be really cool. But that's it from today, and I'll see you next time.